Good afternoon, all. This is Shivani. Great to see you all once again in yet another episode of Leadership Spotlight Series by Positive Vibes Consulting. Thank you for loving this show and motivating us to come back every fortnight with a fresh conversation with inspiring thought leaders in various fields who share their extensive knowledge, experience, and wisdom on topics that are contemporary and extremely value adding for the audience. Our last episode with Dr. GP Rao was full of many, many insights and learnings, and I'm sure today's episode will also have many takeaways for all of you. So, today I have a very inspiring woman leader with us who has had a very illustrious career of 18 years in the corporate world. Please join me in welcoming Jayati Roy. Welcome,
Hello.
Jayati.
Hi, Shivani. Hello, everyone.
So, for the audience, I'll very briefly introduce Jayati. She's currently the HR director of Barco. Jayati is an experienced HR and change management professional, having expertise in leading the HR function for highly complex businesses across different industries. The roles that she has held over the years have ranged from running talent acquisition to HR lead for a large business unit, consulting in rewards and talent management. She's been associated with some really very good organizations such as Bharat Petroleum, Infosys, GE, Aeon Hewitt, and NDTV in the past. Before Barco, she was the group HR head for NDTV. And Jayati, as far as her education is concerned, holds a bachelor's degree in economics and has completed her formal education in HR from XLRI Jamshedpur. So, on behalf of Positive Vibes Consulting and our audience, Jayati, once again, a very, very warm welcome to you. And I look forward to an amazing discussion with you today.
Thanks. Same here. It almost sounded like an epic, but yeah, it's been quite an interesting learning stint for me, and I'm glad that we could have this conversation to discuss some things today.
Absolutely. A dilemma that often HR professionals face, and I'm sure a lot of our audience can relate to it, that as an HR professional, how do we strike a balance between being an employee advocate and a strategic business partner? And I'm sure a number of professionals in the HR community have increasingly faced this dilemma in the current times. So this is what our conversation is going to be all about today. Jayati, for the benefit of our audience, shall we first decode these terms? What do we mean by, the term HR as an employee advocate and HR as a business partner? So what makes HR a strategic business partner, and what is the role of HR as an employee advocate before we actually start our discussion?
Yeah. So I think when we look at the role of HR, essentially there are three pillars around which we can divide the whole role. One is, of course, a functional expert, which means the basic administrative aspects that's to be taken care of. So ensuring that your payroll is on time, etc. So that's your one dimension. The other two pillars, which is what we are discussing today, are very clearly what is a strategic business partner or a business partner in short, as is often referred, and what's an employee advocate. So what is an HR supposed to do? Be this person in the middle who can carry the voice of the business back to the employees so that they are connected to the larger picture, and also ensure that you are the sounding board so that employees can reach out to you as an independent neutral party. And when they reach out to you, they reach out to you with the whole aspect that you are going to ensure that there is a hearing, which does not, however, mean that every demand of the employee gets to reach to the management. And you're not like this conduit between the business and employees, but you are mature enough to take a judgment call and say these are valid feedbacks, or this is what I hear from the ground up, and this is what I should therefore pass on to the business so that a more informed decision could be taken. So that's the role of an employee advocate, where the voice of the employee is given out. When you look at a strategic business partner, of course, it's a very easily understood term. If I look at any, well-informed CEO today, they clearly partner with two people very strongly. One is the CFO, the other is a CHRO. These are two clearly defined roles, which means you pretty much understand the business as the business is, not business from an HR perspective. So you
Right.
understand the numbers, you understand what it is talking about, and therefore carve your people strategies around it so
True.
that you are aligned to deliver, I mean, helping the business to succeed. So that's the aspect around the business leader
Sure,
or the
sure.
business partner.
I think you've explained it very beautifully. The advocacy part of it, that you're, a sort of a sounding board for the employees as well as the representative of the management in
True.
terms of communicating the important business decisions. And as a strategic business partner, you are actually partnering with the business. You're a part of the business and handling the people strategy and supporting the business. That's great. So, uh, you know. What role do you think HR has played during the pandemic out of these two? Was it more of a strategic partner or an employee advocate or both? And what new possibilities has this time opened up for HR, more importantly, as a strategic business partner? What's your thought on this?
Yeah, I had a very interesting thought, and a corollary was opening up in front of my eye. It might be exaggerating, but I remember my mother, right? So every time when you're unwell, you would also remember your mom because she's the one who takes care of you.
Yes.
She's the ideal so-called human resources professional at home because
Yes.
she is your advocate to your father, most often looked at the stricter representative.
Yeah.
She also manages to run the house and understand, so she can navigate you without you realizing which way you're heading, as long as it's meaningful for you
Yeah.
and the home. But the reason I remembered my mother is, when you're not well or when things are going tough, she's the one who holds the ground and takes care of it. So, in my mind, the pandemic actually made us play a similar role. So, HR not only continued to be the business partner in the true sense, but
Yeah.
became a wellness champion.
Right.
So, not an employee advocate, but a wellness champion. You would have seen almost all HR leaders across the organization taking up the whole responsibility of that emergency response
Yeah.
team,
Yeah.
reaching out to employees, taking care of their well being, ensuring that families are safe. So, I think along with that, ensuring that the business deliverables don't drop. So, it can't be that, my employees are unwell, therefore, business is suffering. So,
Yeah.
how do we manage this balance of ensuring employees don't feel the brunt of it? The ones who need the break get the break. Uh,
Right.
who can step in and take that responsibility up so that productivity does not drop? I
Right.
think that was a fine line which a lot of us during the pandemic worked on.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think that's going to be an increasing direction in which HR would be focusing. Enhance
Right.
productivity while ensuring that the organization remains safe and happy.
Absolutely, very nice analogy of being a mother, because that's what we all relate to, right? Whenever we are in problem, we all want our moms to be around to take care of us, to pamper us, and I think you very beautifully explained the synergy between HR and how, and I completely agree with you. I have so many HR friends who during that time were all their focus was on wellness, on helping employees in different parts of the country, not just in the city that they are living in, but my WhatsApp, my college WhatsApp group was like flooding with people wanting, asking for help. So yes, I completely agree with you that HR has played that role of a wellness champion very, very effectively, and at the same time ensured that the productivity does not suffer. So
Yeah.
absolutely agree with you there. Jayati, you have in-depth experience in various industries. You started with manufacturing, consulting with Aon Hewitt, IT, media, and now technology. How have you seen the role of HR evolve as a strategic business partner in your career across industries?
Yeah. So, look, when I was with Bharat Petroleum and the kind of industry it is, there is a lot which needs to be followed by process because
Right.
it is an industry which is, prone to otherwise accidents if you don't. So, uh, those organizations which are largely driven and governed by processes would not have so much of a business partnering role. Added to it, probably it was in the initial stages of my career. So a lot of
Sure.
factors played in. What stage of my career was I in? What stage of maturity was HR as an organization in?
Right.
And how much digitization had crept in. So all of that evolved over a period of time.
Hmm.
But if I look at fundamentals of HR, pretty much they have remained the same, which means, we still would continue to be that one sounding board which can continue to be a neutral party.
Right.
We would still understand the business as much as we could understand it earlier.
Right.
But having said that, one thing that has certainly seen a change over the years is HR's involvement in larger decision making at the business end.
Hmm.
So from being this administrative back office function, which was, pretty much there in existence because payroll had to be done or
Yeah.
compliances had to be met,
Yeah.
HR now increasingly, and also credit to business and HR both, where they've partnered effectively. We've
Yeah.
increasingly got a seat at the table on a lot of decisions.
Right.
So I have in fact worked with the earlier business on expansion. We've worked on carving out visions of organization and driving some strategy change.
Awesome.
Um, so those are kind of things that always take place when you start
Right.
having a say. I also have a mentor within my previous bosses who kept saying that HR is a function which really needs to know the numbers very well. So you know
Absolutely.
I still remember when we would be interviewing candidates way on earlier. With HR, the expectation is a very simple statement. I love interacting with people, and therefore I am in HR. That
Yes.
used to always be a statement that
That
would
still
come. But
is. That still is, by the way.
yeah, but HR is it's a business function first and a people function along with it. So if the business does not exist, you don't exist. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely.
Each business function has a way of functioning. For example, marketing has a way of functioning by showcasing the organization and products. Sales way of functioning is by ensuring that as a revenue generation machine
Yeah.
is on. Finance's way of functioning is ensuring that the liquidity and the cash flow of the organization is maintained. And
Right.
HR's way of functioning is by ensuring that talent is there at an optimum level, well engaged, doing well, and therefore the organization is growing. So I think if you
Absolutely.
look at it from a flip side, and not HR is there because people are there, but also because the business is there,
Business is there.
that's the change that seems to have come.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you said that because we have a lot of young people who've joined us today, young HR professionals, and in fact, when I do my mentoring sessions and my courses, one of the when we do the compensation and benefits module, so a lot of people say, and when we talk about HR being a strategic business partner, a lot of people even today feel that HR is only people centric. It's got, it's not a numbers game. And that's why you are in HR because you like talking to people. So that still exists today. I'm so glad you said that HR exists because there is a business. We exist because there is a business, not because there people exist because there's a business. And our role is to support the people and the business in the whole process. So I'm
Absolutely.
so glad you said that. Super. Great. I would just, like to encourage the audience also here that in case you have any questions, you can post it in the comments and we'll take it up live with Jayati. Um, okay. Now, in the current times, Jayati, would you like to share some, innovative practices that your organization has undertaken to maintain employee productivity and supported the business in your organization? Any specific practices you'd like to talk about so that people here, HR experts, HR leaders here also get an idea of what kind of things they can do in their organizations?
Yeah, no. So to be honest, we really didn't have to do much because our organization was, the manufacturing unit was functioning and therefore there was an output that was coming in. Uh, the research and development arm has its own milestones and targets, and then we have a software arm with the
Okay.
organization fairly large.
Sure.
With software, which is the one that could work remote the most, the reason it sort of succeeded is because we work on agile as a method from the various
Awesome.
methodologies we practice Scrum. So as long as your Scrum cycles are met and
Yeah.
your goals are delivered and the stories are closed on time, you know that your productivity is there. So it's easier to measure. But I
Yeah.
know of organizations which have actually started redefining their goals and breaking it down into further small chunks,
Yeah.
using a lot of collaboration tools and project management tools, Trello being one of them, which they have been using to ensure that from a time to time, everybody is getting into this, getting shorter assignments, getting them
Yeah.
closed, giving feedback. Also, again, within organizations, appreciation has increased. Not
Yeah.
just, because we want to appreciate somebody, but I think that just brings in that camaraderie, brings makes you feel slightly better, and therefore enhances productivity. So I
Yeah.
think not just tools, but the way you empathize with your people, the way leadership guides people, all of that has enabled productivity enhancement. But for
Absolutely.
us, it was easy.
Very, very nice to hear that you've spoken about just not the productivity but the empathy part as well, because one of the I would say, unfortunately, one of the impacts of this pandemic has also been a lot of suffering and a lot of pressure on the mental health of people as well. So I'm
Absolutely.
very glad to hear the word empathy from coming from an HR leader here, along with productivity. But one related question, that how do you ensure in such times that in your organization, how do you ensure employees? One is the productivity level. The other is how do you ensure the camaraderie, the same kind of bonding. What is your organization doing in terms of not letting that camaraderie lose? And especially for people who join in new during the pandemic time, they're joining virtually. They find it a little difficult to build that connect with co-employees, because in office, you can always go for a chai or a lunch or something like that. But here, you can't. So what are some of the things that you probably would suggest
So
organizations
we
to keep
really
up that?
missed that, coffee corner conversations, as it's particularly
Yeah.
called. But yeah, it could be the chai wala thela conversation
Yeah.
also for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But that's indeed important. What we try, of course, to do, we've tried through a lot of initiatives to inculcate this, and let me try and explain what we did. One, of course, there's a lot of focus on communication. So communication by the CEO at the global level, because it is a global organization and it's
Yeah.
important to be connected.
Right.
In fact, to be very honest, we saw so much empathy by the global organization towards India. It's not a story that can be untold, because we had concentrators coming in from our headquarters for our Indian colleagues. We had
Wow.
people sending in their own messages. Yammer is a communication tool which is globally used. So, of course, being in a software space, a lot of tools and technologies get used
Yeah.
as platform.
Yeah.
What we've locally also done, apart from the usual all hands that our local MD does, we've sort of started having small group conversations. So
Sure.
each business leader just does this catch up conversation, and you're free to join in with a cup of tea, just more chit chat around what's happening, where are you, and you can hear people working from the hills, people working from
Yeah.
their hometowns in the villages, and stories around that. So it's not unheard of where somebody switches the camera, turns the laptop across, and shows that, okay,
Yeah.
uh, there's the farm that's behind my back, and this is where I am right now. So I guess those are moments that bring you closer.
Yes.
What's happened, Shivani, is instead of people getting closer to their colleagues, families have sort of started getting closer to each other through this.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
we are okay if a child walks in, and my son keeps walking into various calls of mine from time to time, and it's very embarrassing at times when you're having a serious conversation, and then there is this boy who walks in with a school uniform trying to ask a
Yeah.
question because he's stuck.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of us experience that. I'm sure a lot
yeah,
of us
and
have experienced
because we've intruded into their space, it was honestly
absolutely.
their space, not ours at that time.
Yes. Yes. True.
I can relate to my own experience. In fact, my son's birthday is in April, and that's when pandemic hit, of
Yeah.
course. So
Yeah.
my whole team, we they actually celebrated the birthday virtually, his birthday, not
Wow.
just mine, because his friends couldn't come in. So
Yeah.
and we've done that for almost all our colleagues across within the team.
Awesome.
So each team does a bonding of this kind, where we try and sort of take a moment off. We understand, after a while it gets monotonous because you're running from one meeting to the other. But I think,
Yes.
opportunities of these kinds help in
Yes.
bringing the bond together.
Awesome. Those are very nice, very simple, doable things. Doesn't take too much of an effort. You don't have to
Absolutely.
really plan for it. And I think they are the most effective because they're done impromptu. And anything that's done unplanned, impromptu, especially as far as informal conversations are concerned, I think that. And I've heard this, from other HR colleagues as well, that when they start their meetings in the morning, the first 15 minutes is nothing but catch up, and
Yeah,
after that the team goes on to, of course it can't replace the chai wala, the tapri wala conversations, but still something is better than nothing.
absolutely.
Super. We have a question here from Felix. This is related to something different, which is around employee branding. So curious to know about the scope of employee branding in this trend.
Is it
um,
employee branding or employer branding? Because
I
I'm
would
also
think
very
it is
confused.
employer branding. I would think it is employer branding from an HR point of view. I would think it is employer branding.
Yeah. So, because branding of an employee is also an employee's responsibility as much as
Yeah,
it is his or her leader. So that's the only part I can talk about employee branding.
sure.
Um, Employer branding in the pandemic, is that what I would want to understand the question better? Maybe given the
Yeah,
current times, how would we focus on employer branding? I
yeah,
think each brand has spoken for themselves through what they have done with their own people.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So, if you've stood up with your people as an organization at the time of need, you have spoken out loud and clear. You really don't need to go ahead and showcase and create more posters around
Right,
branding.
right,
I know there used to be events. We've seen a lot of tech events that would take place from an branding perspective, but the last 2 years have actually been putting all of those statements that people made into action.
right,
uh, Again, if I relate to Barco as an organization, we have our culture building blocks, and one of the fundamental building blocks is we care, we grow. And
sure.
like I said, people getting up from various parts of the world, collecting funds, ensuring those funds, are used towards medical purposes for our people,
Sure.
for helping in setting up the vaccination camp for all our employees, including their families as well. So those
Wow.
are kind of things that we really realize that we do team up globally. It's not just an individual thing, and of course we care for our employees. So
Right.
those aspects stood out, and I
Yeah.
think that's going to help a long way in creating the brand, because who is your biggest brand ambassador? It
Your
is your
employees.
existing employee, right?
Absolutely.
He's the one,
Absolutely.
his family. If that population can still speak for you, I think you really don't need an external branding champion.
Absolutely. I completely second what you're saying. I think this pandemic, and I'm so glad, you mentioned about Barco doing so much for its employees. I think a lot of organizations have been able to touch the lives of not just the employees, but their extended families as well. And when you touch the lives of not just the employee but the family, then you have a certain set of people who become your brand ambassadors, because
Absolutely.
they are the ones who've genuinely felt that concern, and they've experienced that care from the organization. And when they go out and speak about the organization, that's I to my mind, honestly, if you ask me, employer branding, the best way of doing employer branding is to delight your employees, because they
Absolutely.
are, like you rightly said, they are your best brand ambassadors. So delight them, and there is your brand that you ended up building
Created.
without
Correct.
any posters or any kind of a campaign running around it, which looks a little doctored. So I completely second your points out there. Jayati, in the work from home scenario, one question, and I think Rima also has the same question. I'll just pull that up here. So Rima is asking that in this remote era, how do we drive culture or include the organization culture in the event of new joiners? So how do we make them a part of the culture? And what do we do to avoid the remote work fatigue of employees? I'm sure this is something that a lot of people would want to
Yeah,
know.
yeah, absolutely. So great question, and I'm the reason I smiled is the first part is something that we actually started into, and then the pandemic hit. So we were redoing the organization culture, and like I
Okay.
said, there were 5 blocks. The
Yeah.
way we arrived at the culture was also very simple. I mean, sounds simple now. It wasn't simple then. We actually did ground up. So we would go. two people, talked to them about the ingredients that existed within the organization that they
Okay.
felt is important and they felt is prevalent. And from there, we managed to, we used to keep going back, report out to the management,
Sure.
uh, agree on, which were the top few, and then come back, do a rejig again, and all of this globally. So something could be relevant to India but not relevant to China, or relevant to India but not relevant to Germany. So we would
Yeah.
tweak around that and define the culture.
Sure.
But because we were in the middle of this exercise, we kept working on that exercise even during the pandemic. And a couple of things that we managed to do is, of course, we did a great session on resilience with a global speaker. She is, again, a Dutch speaker, so not too many people in India would have heard of her. But
Sure.
that helped people connecting with self. So we did a three-course steps. The first was connecting with yourself and
Hmm.
understanding yourself better. Then we did a step on connecting with your colleagues, your peers, and your leaders. So at each step, you're getting to understand yourself better and the organization better. So how do you connect
Sure.
with that? And again, that was a program that was driven by street children from global sites. So how
Sure.
are they resilient? What kind of things do they do? So that's a very different program completely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the third part was how do you deal with customers and what is their outlook. So I think that those were a couple of initiatives that we took at a culture level. But
Sure.
I think most importantly, with the new joiners,
Yeah.
I think they experienced our culture, like I said, through the pandemic. They got a first-hand live experience, including ensuring a smooth onboarding, including ensuring that assets are there with them on time, ensuring that their apprehensions around what's going to happen to my medical insurance. I still, I'm not naming the person, but there was a person who had COVID after he had quit his last organization, and who was apprehensive that if I join your organization, what will happen?
Hmm.
So we encouraged him. He did come on board, and he was on COVID leave once he joined, till, of
Oh.
course, he recovered and he came and started working. So it's
Sure.
not that, we are there and we will support only the people who are existent. When we say there is a culture, it is for all our people, including the campus hires who are not yet on board. I
Very
think what
nice.
other organizations are also doing, which we haven't been able to do given a manufacturing setup, etc., they are, of course, forcing time offs, because you
Yeah.
really need to disconnect from the gadget,
Yes.
which means
Yes.
after a certain time, try and switch off. I think I'm a very bad example at it, but a lot of people are encouraging to try and switch off. It is important, because unless you do so, it keeps playing on your mind
Yes.
over and over again.
Yes. Yes. I've heard of one of the organizations. A friend of mine works there, and they have a digital detox day. So one day in a week you can take as
Of a
a
week,
digital
yes, they
detox
do.
day.
They do.
Yeah, one day of the week, and you're just supposed to switch off. Nobody's going to call you, and you're not supposed to look at your phone also. So I think, the culture part that you spoke about, those are very, very interesting initiatives that your organization did, and I'm
Yeah,
sure a lot of people can take cues from it and implement similar things in their organizations as well. But what I feel is, I think for the new joiners, it's even more important to give them probably more platforms to communicate. Communication and being
absolutely.
connected is the key. Because
Absolutely.
obviously you're joining a new organization and you're not able to meet anyone, so you tend to feel lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're also wanting to sort of make your place, so it becomes a little difficult for new employees. But I think what you rightly said,
I think what works for us is also the strong buddy system that is in place, because then the
super.
buddies really hands hold the new joiner,
Yeah,
not just from an official work perspective, but knowing and helping the nuances of the organization. Because again, Barco, though a very small organization, is a metrics organization, so it's not easy to know everything unless you
yeah,
really get
get
connected.
it.
So
Yeah, yeah,
so the buddy really, really helps in passing on the organization culture, the softer aspects of it. And of
super.
course, like you said, communication is a deal breaker in any such
Yeah,
situation.
yeah, and I'm again, very glad that you mentioned the buddy program, and here's someone who's actually implemented it, and they're seeing the benefits of it. So people, we keep talking about buddy programs, but not many organizations take it very seriously. I mean, they want to do it, but it's just there, in paper. So do it in the right way, and it is going to give, especially in these times, a lot of help, especially in inducting the new joinees. Great. Super. Jayati, a personal question. In all the organizations that you worked with, now, could you narrate an experience where you were caught in this dilemma of donning the hat of a business partner or an employee advocate? How did you deal with it, and what was the outcome?
I'm of course not going to name the organization. It
Sure.
certainly is not the current experience. Thankfully, there was a situation where there was going to be a mass letting go of employees, and a lot of people do face it in the current period of time.
Yeah.
It's quite challenging because, like I said, from the business numbers, it's very clear that the numbers are unsustainable after a point of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the impacted employees also, when we looked at the list that finally got made, the impacted employees were all a lot tenured employees and very needy. So probably the bread earners, initial days, etc. So
Sure.
I think that those were the days, and I still remember there were a couple of nights when I wouldn't sleep and would worry
Yeah.
about is there a better solution, and I knew there isn't. Right, it takes time to
Yeah.
probably do it when you're at that moment. I think that was a very challenging time when you are an employer advocate and you would say, hey, protect the job. Uh,
Yeah.
Fortunately, those days it wasn't as bad a situation in the job market as increasingly became. But again, the market is opening up now, so situation should look better even now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we then went on and created two things. One is a very clean communication plan. So no snatching away the laptop from people and putting a pink slip and hiding it and telling you get off now. So giving the person the opportunity to leave with dignity.
Dignity.
And I think that is very important. It's see, they're not really stolen something.
Yeah.
There's no fraud that they have committed. It is a business redundancy. It's as simple as that. So
Right.
I think that was the first bit, and the second is to the best extent possible to look at creating a package which was
Yeah.
conducive and possible from the business scenario. So it's not that on one hand the people who stayed were enjoying and the others were losing. So ensuring that there is a balance, ensuring there is more mature conversation,
Sure.
ensuring people leave with dignity and get a considerably decent package.
Yeah.
Also working then with outplacement services to an extent possible. So,
Sure.
so I think those were a number of options that we looked at to be the employee advocate from that
Right.
aspect, and
Right.
then of course be the business partner because it is a difficult task, but it needs to be done. So,
Yes. Yeah. I think the whole point of making an environment, making a sort of a ecosystem where people live with dignity. I think that's something that HR from its side can definitely facilitate, and a good severance package so that they can at least sustain from, for a
absolutely.
few months. That's a great example that you gave of, and I'm sure a lot of HR people in these times when they're faced with this kind of a situation do have sleepless nights about it. While you can't do anything because, like you said, after some point in time the numbers tell you very clearly that it's going to be unsustainable, so you have to take that difficult decision. But how do you take it? Like outplacement services is a great initiative wherein you are helping your employees to get placed somewhere. If you can't accommodate them, help them find a job. So I think I really, really very good points, Jayati, in terms of how we can make it a little easier for people. It's never easy, but at least something that they can move on with. Super. One related question I have here now in this pandemic again, because of the business numbers, a lot of companies have not been able to give increments, and rightfully so because businesses have not been able to give increments. Now, in such situations when employees, definitely expect some kind of a monetary increase, how do companies keep them motivated, especially when they're not able to compensate them monetarily? How how does how does one do that?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the amount that the companies have invested towards healthcare efficiency, including your insurances, etc., have
Yeah.
also been humongous. So, In my mind, I've seen employees honestly being grateful and not really,
Tipping point.
speaking a lot or making a lot of noise. Now, I don't know, is it out of apprehension that I don't want to make a noise, or is it also out of understanding that, hey, this is the reality and it's the trend that is happening around me? Having
Hmm.
said that, yes, there is a certain group of employees where there is a rapid hiring and rapid attrition that is also there, particularly if you look at the software segment.
Yeah, yeah,
Now, it's important for us to be able to communicate. Like I said, communication is a deal breaker in a lot of things, and particularly engaging your employees, it's important for you to be
yeah,
extremely transparent in the communication. So,
yeah,
and of course, in organizations, we have adults, right? Everybody is an adult, they understand. If
yeah,
the person is really truly your committed employee, the person, if communicated openly, shown the
yeah.
purpose, shown the drive, can always understand and reciprocate at the time of need, because there have been opportunities where you have also rewarded this person in the
Yes,
past, right?
yes.
So I think that's one thing that the organization can, should, and we have at least tried and
Sure.
implemented quite a lot. We've been extremely transparent as far as our communication channels are concerned. What couple of organizations have also been able to work on is, look at building a long-term wealth. So organizations which are listed on local stock exchanges, at least,
Yeah,
have still given wealth building opportunities, and then put that on for a future. So I think those could be monetary terms, but
yeah,
most importantly, responsive and how, like I said, empathetic has your leader
yes,
been? Is the
yeah,
person there for you?
yeah,
Uh, is the Are you connected to the organization? Do you understand how your bit of work really impacts what your business needs?
yeah.
So I think those things make a lot of difference in engaging people.
Sure. I think your
What?
point.
Sorry.
Sorry,
Yeah, I
sorry. Go
just
ahead.
have
Go
one
ahead.
piece more
Sure.
that I did, and I mean, not I, but we did as an organization, and that sort of work is, we of course provided a lot of learning opportunities.
Okay.
So we used this pandemic time when you're not commuting and not
Yeah.
traveling, in leveraging through a lot of e-learning platforms.
Awesome.
So what it of course did to employees is, okay, there is no money coming in, but is there an upskilling opportunity that I can leverage? So I think
Yeah.
in some way or the other, you try
Awesome.
and give them a holistic
Yes.
growth.
Awesome. I think that's a great idea. And what I really like about what you said is, if you are empathetic and if you've shown people the concern and the care when they actually needed it, I think then people also understand that as a business, it's not probably possible to give a monetary increase, but the employer is there when you need them. And I think a lot of organizations have proved it in the in the second wave, the devastating second wave that we had. That where sometimes employees also think that it's not just the money that matters, but a whole lot of other things that matter. And the learning and development is amazing. I mean, I must compliment you that if you've been able to do that in these times, it's a great way to reward your employees, even if you're not able to
Absolutely.
compensate them monetarily. I think it's something that so for the audience here, these are some of the takeaways. People who are grappling with not being able to give monetary compensation to their people, these are some of very, very good and powerful ideas that Jayati has shared with us. So please do consider them, for your organizations. Jayati, as we prepare now for the next normal in the workplace, with collaboration and engagement gaining the center stage, what hacks would you share with the audience to strengthen the role of HR in their organizations in the coming times?
So, if I would look at what does business expect HR to do, and therefore, or what do employees expect HR to do, and what does HR expect itself to do, right? One,
Yeah,
of course, let us be true domain experts. I think that's one thing that we would continue to be, and we should be. So,
right.
if you talk about an HR practice and policy, then that should be something that you are well read, you are informed, you know the trends in the market. So is there is thought leadership that's there in you. I think the other few things that we should be doing, like I have been saying in the beginning, we should know our business, connect with the larger picture.
Yeah,
uh, a change between what we were not doing earlier as effectively and what we should be doing a lot more now is make data driven decisions. I think data
Absolutely.
and analytics is the key thing. I still remember, in data, I believe, kind of a statement that Narayan Murthy had, made many years ago, and that still holds true. So make data driven decisions, and of course, we should be able to assess the readiness and the priorities of the business and then prioritize our actions. So
Right.
it isn't doing an intervention for the sake of doing an intervention. Five
Yeah.
organizations are doing it, and therefore I do it. That's
Yeah.
not something that's really going to work.
Yeah.
Is my business in the stage where it really needs it? Is that the priority of my business at this point, or am I just doing it because I want to do it?
Right. Absolutely.
So yeah.
Awesome. I think again, very valid points. Brought about. You just shared, Jayati, and I think for people who are, because my next question is going to be around people who are starting off their careers. But one input that you've definitely given is that know the business. Start with knowing the business, because how will you be a business partner unless and until you don't understand the whole essence of the business, its challenges, and how you can support the business. Because like you, we started off the discussion by saying that we are there for the business and we exist because the business exists. So on a related note, Jayati, what's your advice to people who are just starting their careers in HR? What's your advice related to them being establishing themselves as an HR business partner as well as an employee advocate? How do they learn to strike that balance?
I think I would, of course, thank Bharat Petroleum and Infosys both for my foundational years. So with Bharat Petroleum, they really didn't differentiate between what you were, whether you were an HR person or a salesperson that they had hired as a management trainee. They
Yeah,
put all of us through the same grind, which means we still fill petrol by standing on petrol tanks. We have stood at petrol pumps selling petrol. We have gone to gas filling stations and filled gases and sold gas cylinders as well. So what it gives us is a deep understanding of exactly how your business operates.
absolutely.
And probably that's one beginning that made me always keep getting deeper into how does a business operate, what are the
Yeah,
nuts and bolts of it. And from there to Infosys, again getting to understand exactly how the whole software development cycle operates, what are the different ways of doing this, how does a client acquisition take place, the entire
yeah,
gamut of that activity. What it
yeah,
also does is it gets you grounded. You're not this
yeah,
person who's come from a B school and therefore
yeah,
you have some
yeah,
additional armor that you sort of wear.
yeah,
You work with the remaining people on the floor, and
yeah,
there you manage to get a connect, and
yeah,
you are more accessible. So till date, I
yeah,
think it would be it wouldn't be boastful for me to say that I have had people from all ranks who've been able to openly come up to me and talk to me and
yeah,
walk up. And I have
yeah,
seen that happening with a lot of very senior leaders, be it
yeah,
HR leaders or business leaders, where if they are around, people from all ranks could just walk up to their room and have a conversation, be it the driver
right,
or the maid.
yeah,
So or including the topmost person. So
but yeah,
ensure that you can span that range. You are not there only for a certain group of employees. And I think
absolutely,
most importantly, like I said, understand the business, not just the technology or the business side of it, but also
yeah,
understand the numbers. A lot of HR professionals are not comfortable with numbers. That's not something that excites us.
yeah,
Please understand the financials, the
yeah,
balance sheet. If you haven't really read it well, then do read the last couple of years of balance sheet well. So I
absolutely,
think that's something that
absolutely.
I would certainly say.
Awesome, and it's very beautiful that you've explained it. Using your own personal experience of being in Bharat Petroleum and Infosys. And incidentally, I also had the same experience when I joined. I started off my career with BCM Sriram. My first posting was at the units. and wherein I used to go to the plants, have chai with the workers, and talk to people, and the kind of connect that I could build there, and which helped me, when I came to the corporate, it helped me, getting a lot of work done from the units. So it's all about relationships. And in my
Absolutely.
second organization, when I started off with Yum, so the induction was all about going for 1 week in Pizza Hut and 1 week in KFC, standing in the kitchen, making the food, serving to the customers. Because what that did was that helped me to, get an understanding of the business as well as the challenges that people face, the
Yeah.
employees face. So standing in the kitchen, working for 10 hours is a challenging work, and so when they come and tell you your problems, you can actually relate to it and
And in
find
fact,
solutions for it, because you've been through the grind.
the esoteric plans HR sometimes makes, which are not realistic, will not be made if you are
Absolutely.
there.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you won't want a person who's been standing in the kitchen for 10 years to 10 days or 10, sorry, 10 hours at a
10
stretch,
hours.
10
Yeah.
hours at a stretch to come and, then start getting into a conference room on a team building activity and listening to somebody giving
Absolutely.
yarn. It
He'd
really
rather
doesn't work.
want, it doesn't work. He'd really want to just get some time off and rest his feet. So
Absolutely.
completely, so all the more important for HR people to actually get into the nitty-gritties of business, because it helps them in their role of being employee advocates as well. And of course, being
Yes.
strategic business partners too. Great. Awesome. We have a question from Shweta here. So her question is that what do you see in a business HR professional? Should that person just know the technical side of the job, or would you also give equal importance to the empathy and human side of a business HR?
Okay. In my mind, the first human resources manager is the first level manager of an employee. It is not the HR function.
True.
So,
Right.
the HR manager is actually the manager of the employee, the direct manager, because that's the
People
person
manager.
who knows the pulse, who knows
Yeah.
the requirements, who has the empathy, and who has the understanding. So, of course, nothing goes without having the empathy, the resilience that you would need to
Yeah.
bring in, and also the maturity to deal with those situations.
Yeah.
So you can't be so overwhelmed with empathy that you're not able to coach that person effectively or mentor that person effectively.
True.
So within HR, which is why I was talking about that mother, a mother who's very empathetic at times when the person needs to be empathetic, but is
Yeah.
also stricter and non-indulgent at times when it's needed to be a non-indulgent person. So that's
Absolutely.
what I would mean from a business HR professional. Please ensure that the balance does not tip on one side of it at any
Yeah.
point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the balance is the key, because sometimes we tend to tilt towards one side,
Yeah,
and then it becomes a slightly challenging situation, on the side that we are not on, technically, so to say. So very, very
and it's
valid points
important
there.
to communicate, like I said, right? So if there is a certain thing that you think you are, where employees
Yeah.
would think you're not a great advocate because you've not listened to
Yes.
them, or their ideas have not
Yes.
got promoted, I think it's important to let them know why, and
Yeah.
why certain other decisions have been made, because
Yeah.
it's always easy for people to make perceptions unless you have made yourself explicitly very clear why a
Yeah.
certain decision has been taken, and
Yeah.
what's in it for them. So I think
Yeah.
it's important, again, like I keep saying, communicate.
Absolutely, absolutely, it is. I think if you explain the bigger picture, people do, have that basic level of, understanding and empathy to empathize with the business as well. Because if you've been
Absolutely.
empathetic to them, they also at some point in time become too empathetic with their own
Absolutely.
organization. So completely agree on that. There's one more question we'll take here from Devam, that an HR business partner is almost like an internal consultant to the various other functions. From your experience, how difficult is it to break the ice and establish trust with the functional heads? Could you share some tips for fresh HR business partners to help them transition to the new role?
Wow, this is an interesting question. And you can understand that coming from someone who's also leading businesses. Yes. So it isn't easy from day one to go ahead. People are not there waiting for this person to come and say, hey, hello, welcome. Everything
Yeah.
that we have done from now is something that you understand, and here's what it is. I
Yeah.
think the first step to building any kind of trust and credibility is through your own domain, because that's
Sure.
where you are
Sure.
visible, right?
Yeah.
Ensure that the tasks of your domain are done with ultimate care, and ensuring that there is complete success there. Along with that,
Sure.
it is important to be neutral and to appear neutral. So you can't
Yeah.
be seen, as a person X's sounding, reflecting board. So your
Yeah.
voice is not the voice of person X, Y, Z. You have to have a voice, and you need to be able to voice it as well.
Yeah.
So have a say. Ensure that you stand up and take a stand in decision making platforms, in meetings,
Sure.
etc.
Yeah.
So once you start taking your stand, once you start showing your individuality, along with having established your credibility as a functional expert, you will start seeing there is more acceptance.
True.
Most
Right.
importantly, so this is while there is openness. So they'll say, "Hey, come on!" So because when you join an organization, everybody is on a wait and watch mode. You are also
Yeah.
waiting and watching to while you are blending. They are also waiting and watching, right? Who are you?
Yeah.
What are you bringing to
Yeah.
the table? And what kind of alignments do you have?
Yeah.
I think with that, it is important to understand what is paining them,
Yeah.
what is their need,
Yeah.
what is their style of working,
Yeah.
and then flex yourself a little more to be able to adjust A to their styles,
Yeah.
B also to address their needs, because each person has a need, and when their needs are addressed, they are there to they understand. Okay, this person gets what I'm talking about, and
Yeah.
therefore is someone who I can reach out to.
Yeah.
So I think not very simple. It sounds simple. It's taken me years to try and do bits of that, and I won't say I'm a perfect example yet, because when you join a new organization, you start afresh every time you do that, right? So
Right.
but I
Absolutely.
think when you're honest, when you're transparent, when you don't have hidden agendas, and that's shown through your deeds and communication, it
Yeah.
comes out very clearly, and people do respect all of
Very,
that.
very deep and very thoughtful, I would say, suggestions, and very doable. It's like it's coming straight from the heart, because I'm sure you've been in this situation. Most of us have been in this situation,
Absolutely.
and I think it's these, these very, very simple solutions to it. Like you said, if you have the right intentions, you will absolutely succeed in doing this. So beautiful thoughts there, Jayati. Thank you so much for sharing. Since we are running just now on just on time, we'll probably have time for one or two more questions. So I encourage the audience, in case there are any more questions, please feel free to post them now. Jayati, with the hybrid workplace model, being the likely future of workplaces, everybody's talking about a hybrid model now, with some people, working from the office and some people working from home. How do you envisage the role of HR leaders?
Quite a lot. Because I still remember and I still enjoy and miss the moments when we could actually walk across the floors, have those casual conversations at the
Yes.
desks of employees, and connect with them. And
Yeah.
those are moments that you really miss, because
Yeah.
it's an effort, right? Every time you're trying to have an informal conversation, it isn't that informal, because the body language is something that you don't gauge. It's more
Yeah.
around something on the phone or something on the system. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think HR will therefore slowly start to build skills around, of course, how do you network in a
Yeah.
not so available model.
Yeah.
That's a skill that we will need to build up. I
Yeah.
think HR will also need to be able to ensure better time management, because
Yeah.
we really need to manage our calendars in a way where when people are in office, we can interact more with them and connect more with them,
Yeah.
and ensure that the rest of the operational processes are taken care of at other times.
Right.
What will help, of course, is a lot of automation, which is now possible. So
Yeah.
you're more available for those communication opportunities. You're more available for listening to people. You're more available to coaching people and having conversations with them.
Yeah.
rather than trying to spend time getting your brass tacks
Sure.
in order. So I think
Yes.
those are things that are going to change with hybrid, where people will come and go at their
Yes.
own pace,
Yes.
including the whole gig system of work.
Yeah.
That's also going to
Yeah.
be in place. So I think there's going
Yes.
to be a lot of change that we see.
Absolutely. And, one very, important point you raised of the gig workers. Now, coming to this, trend of hiring gig workers, which we've seen in a big, on a big scale in this pandemic. How does one ensure that, the same levels of productivity are, achieved with gig workers? And how do we make them feel a part of the organization as well? So it's productivity and engagement both.
I think productivity is not a challenge because with most gig workers, why are they working in a gig model? Specifically in a country like India, where social security is not really the most optimal, and you will
Yeah.
still need to have cash to manage because
Yeah.
you're an expert in a certain domain. So you
Yeah.
you will be called for your expertise. You can perform, and you will leave. So
Right.
output is going to be there, at any stage for them. So that I
Right.
don't think will be a challenge, unless of course you land up with a person who's really the person who wants to go for a free ride. So that's a different kind of a gig worker.
Right.
But how do you manage to integrate them? I think the biggest challenge that HR will face will be in ensuring that these gig workers are integrated into the fabric of your culture.
Yes. Yes.
um, they will be
Right.
amalgamations of multiple cultures. It's going to be difficult to integrate them, but it is important that they do feel a part of the organization. Otherwise, you really don't want these individuals in a
Yeah.
family that is working together. You would want the
Yes.
family to work together.
Absolutely.
So that's a challenge for HR, and I'm sure like we have found ways to solve a lot of other problems, this is also
Yeah.
going to be solved
Yes.
now that it's been thrown at our face.
Absolutely. I think it's something that we'll have to really rack our brains around in terms of how do we make them feel a part of the family, since they're not full time working for us. So
Yes.
so one of my clients, they engage a lot of these people who are working with them on contract basis. So one practice that they follow is that they make them a part of all the organization engagement activities processes. There's no differentiation between somebody who's working
Absolutely.
as a gig and as a full-time employee. So I think it's the inclusion, what matters and what makes a difference. So that is something that organizations need to probably look into.
Also the benefits. So it shouldn't we shouldn't and when you say inclusion, it shouldn't be that a policies set of policies are different
Yeah.
for workers versus others.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's the starting point. It's
Yeah.
not us versus them. The moment you start
Yeah.
with an us versus
Yeah.
them, then begins the trouble. So I think
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that's a fundamental difference.
There has to be sort of unity in the diversity, if I may call that.
Yeah,
It's a diverse workforce, but all of them have to be treated at the same level. Probably that is what
absolutely,
works. Yeah.
absolutely.
Super. I think we can continue with so many questions. There are so many questions coming in. Probably time for one last question. We'll take, which is around data analytics. So the question is that around data-driven decisions. From your experience, what are some of the key business challenges that you have solved for as an HR professional using data and analytics?
I think we've been talking about productivity so far. So, productivity using a lot of data in terms of availability of talent, in terms of attrition, in terms of therefore how much and what do you need in order to scale the organization. So, a
Yeah.
data does help you build your future organization. That's the first business challenge that you have.
Right.
When we ventured into newer ventures, again there was a lot of data that we had from a talent perspective. So if
Right.
as an organization this is a venture that I'm getting into, is my existing talent ready to take that up?
Hmm.
If I have to hire talent from outside, is there readily available market for that?
Right.
How long will it go is it going to take? How expensive is it going to be, and therefore how viable is it going to be as a
Yeah.
business operation? Because if
Right.
you're going to get only the most expensive people from market who are going to join you 6 months from now, and you
Yeah.
want to launch a venture today and put all your
Yeah.
investments in it, you're really heading for trouble. So I
Yes.
think these are few basic decision making factors that I can immediately think of as the
Sure.
question comes up. But there could be a lot more. How do you look at employee engagement?
Yeah.
That is data, right?
Yeah.
Your exit discussions threw up so much data for
Yeah.
you. When
Yeah.
you lose a candidate, where you hire a
Yes.
candidate from. So, I can go on, and there is no end
Yes.
to the amount of data that we as HR professionals tend to
Use.
gather from our employees'
Absolutely,
lives.
absolutely. There is enough, and many. If one really wants to, have data-driven decisions, there is enough data in HR that one can actually analyze and come up with really very impactful business decisions with that. Things that
Absolutely.
that have a direct impact on the bottom line of the business. Super, Jayati. It's been a great journey. It's we've run out of time. There are so many questions people are having. So for my audience, guys, feel free to connect with Jayati on her LinkedIn handle. We'll be sharing the LinkedIn handle of Jayati after this session. It's been a great experience, Jayati. I've personally enjoyed the conversation a lot today. It was around something that I've also experienced in my career, and I still continue to have that dilemma. So a topic very close to my heart. Thank you so much for taking out the time today and talking to us. It was a complete pleasure to have you
Thanks,
here.
Shivani. It was indeed my pleasure to get to speak to you and, of course, to discuss some of the most pressing topics that are there in our minds. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thanks to the audience for joining us today. On a Saturday afternoon. So stay tuned. We'll be back after 2 weeks with another, impactful speaker and somebody who is a leader in their industry, in their fraternity, on a very contemporary topic. Thank you. Have a great weekend ahead, and stay safe, everyone. Thank you. Bye
Thanks.
bye.
Bye.